Well, good to have you coming back down the road with us. I'm Joel Heitkamp, and on today's show, we're going to have, well, someone you know as Heidi. That's former United States Senator Heidi Heitkamp. My family called her Kathy, or at least my dad did. Her real name is Mary Catherine. We're going to talk to you a little bit about the stimulus bill. What's in it, what should be in it, and wasn't in it, and what the price tag, how we're all going to pay for it. But first, I get a chance to visit with Michael Patrick Smith. Now, he worked in the oil patch during the height of all of it, out in the Bakken Play in the Williston Basin. In the end, he wrote a book about it, The Good Hand. Michael, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So what brought you to North Dakota? What made you say, you know what, I'll go there and I'll make a living there?
I think that, like a lot of guys, I was looking to try to make some money and make it pretty fast. And the stories that I was hearing on the East Coast were sort of gold rush stories that you could go out to North Dakota and make a ton of money in a short period of time.
Well, as somebody who observed it, I'm not so sure it wasn't true, but how did it work out for you?
Financially, it didn't work out very well for me at all. But I did, another reason I came out was sort of for personal reasons. And I felt like I gained a lot of experience and a lot of healing, which is maybe a funny thing to say about oil field work. But I feel like I gained that. And then, of course, the chance to write this book kind of fell into my lap. So
okay, I want to get to the book in just a second, but when you say healing, what are you talking about?
Well, I grew up in a pretty rough household. I experienced a lot of abuse as a kid, and in my mid-30s, when I decided to go to North Dakota, and this is all in retrospect, I should say. I think I found I was a person who was hard to get settled down. It was hard for me to stay in one place. And kind of go into an environment where I had to just work as harder than I'd ever worked in my life. Something about it, changed me and helped me kind of find some perspective in life.
Okay. Because I was there so much, I was up in the Williston Basin a lot, where one of the radio stations that I'm on is Key 660. And so we tried to represent that, and, there was a need to get information out. So I travel around the state in an RV, and you may not know that, but when you're traveling like a gypsy across the state and things are as hot as what they were in the Williston Basin, you got to see it, you got to be there, you got to take it in. And so the big question I have for you is, where'd you live? Because living space was so doggone hard to find in those days.
Yeah, that's a big part of my book, is me looking for places to live. I ended up, I rented a mattress on the floor of a place that, in a living room that I shared with up to 5 other guys. I think that they were at the top 12 of us in a small 3-bedroom townhouse. So I did that for a couple months, and then I eventually got a room in a place, but I do, as I say in the book, I was paying more in rent in North Dakota than I've been paying in New York City, where I lived before that. So,
well, this might be of interest to you, but staying in hotels in those days, being up there, it wasn't uncommon to have the bill be $300 and some for that hotel room. The other night I was in Williston and I stayed there for 2 nights. My total bill was under $70. So,
yeah, I was back in town. It's a few years ago now since I've been back, but it was such a different place. I mean, the transformation of what it's like now. As soon as the pandemic lifts, I'm hoping to get back out and see some of my buddies and let people who maybe don't like my book yell at me a little bit or whatever.
Well, that's good. Let them yell at you. As a talk show host, I'm used to it. You can make that work. So,
yeah.
So what made you decide to put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard or whatever? Either way, you got the book written, The Good Hand. So what made you decide to write it?
Well, I was reading all the stories about Williston at the time, and a lot of them that were in the national press, specifically the local press was doing a great job covering it. But stuff that was in the national press that just didn't seem like it was even scratching the surface. A lot of it seemed inaccurate. And I felt compelled to, just write about the lives of the people that I met. I was kind of blown away by the diversity and by like some of the hard luck stories. I mean, in my book, not too many people really ended up doing so great, which was, I'm sure, partly just the crew I was working with. But when I was living in Williston, I was writing emails to my friends who live on the coast, and they were kind of blown away by the circumstance. I realized how foreign the experience was to people, and I just thought that if I could translate that in a way that expressed the dignity and the hardship of the people I was meeting, that it would be a worthwhile endeavor.
So when you first thought of going to North Dakota, before you ever jumped in your pickup and drove up here, what did you think of it? What was your image of North Dakota before you came?
You know, I was watching guys who were posting on YouTube about their experience as they came to town, and that's where I got a more unvarnished view. But I would say, most of the articles I read made me think I could arrive and really make hand over fist money. I knew it was going to be a rough thing, or that I might have to sleep in my truck for a little bit, but I really thought that there was kind of the riches that were advertised.
So, and I'm sure this is all depicted in your book, but you said you didn't make the kind of money that you thought you'd make. Was that from living expenses, or the wage wasn't as high, or how come?
It was a combination. The wage wasn't as high, and I think I got into town sort of right after companies started regularly offering per diems. So I didn't get a per diem at my job. And then, the living expenses were high. I also made a couple trips back to New York, and just, doing that kind of work is so tough, physically and mentally, that there was a lot of blowing off steam on days off. And I definitely, I'm guilty of just kind of wasting some of the money for sure. But a lot of it was I think, the expense of everything.
So what did you do on your days off? What was a typical night for you, for example?
Well, for the most part, I was going to sleep because I was exhausted, And on my days off, my usual days off, I would sort of camp out in a coffee shop in Williston and write. It took me a while to make some friends. Once I made friends, it was more going to the bar. And that kind of thing. It was as simple as not being able to really have time to cook for myself, that you end up just eating at restaurants and eating expensive meals. And then I did take a couple trips back to New York, where I kind of behaved like a sailor on leave.
I don't blame you one bit. When you were working in the patch, what work did you do, and who did you do it for?
So I was a swamper for a rig moving company, and I was just basically a crane rigger. We took apart oil rigs, loaded them onto trucks, and then put them back together. In the book, I changed the names of the company and the names of the people I work with to kind of protect everybody and not stir things up too much.
That's your way of telling me don't ask, because you're not going to tell me. You're not going to tell me anyway, right?
I got to protect the guilty. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I'm curious about safety. What was safety like when you were working out, and everything was in such a hurry? Everybody wanted it done yesterday. What was safety like?
I felt like there was kind of a theater of safety at the time, and when the theater of safety was implemented, everybody complained. But I didn't get any real training. I was put into a basement, and I watched some VHS tapes for a couple of days, and then I was sent out in the oil field, where the training is basically getting yelled at and called names until you get it right.
So VHS, I want to be sure I understood that. We're not even talking about DVD here. You're talking about VHS. The diversity of the people you worked with. When you think of your buddies that you met, where were they from?
From all over the country. I had the pleasure working with quite a few Williston locals, but also guys from Florida, guys from a lot of guys from Washington State. I lived with a group of Jamaican dudes, and I also worked with several Congolese workers.
Interesting. That had to be really interesting. Have you stayed in touch with any of them?
I have stayed in touch with several people. You know, it's hard with so many of the people who came into town. I'm sure your listeners understand this, that all the people who flooded into town and then kind of flooded out of town, it was hard to keep track of them, even with social media. But I did make some good connections, and I have some good buddies who live in Williston.
The book is called The Good Hand. It's written by Michael Patrick Smith. Michael, if you had to do it all over again, would you come to our state?
100%. 100%. It was a defining experience in my life, and you know, it was hard. I detail it in the book, and I try to be as hard on myself as I am on anybody else I describe. But it changed my life, and I'm glad at the end of the day that I did it.
So, all that said, something made you decide, I'm going to work that hard on this book. I want to tell people this story. Have people found it interesting? That's my way of saying, have you been selling books?
I have been selling books. You know, you always want to sell more books, but it's been getting good press. And you know, almost every day or every other day, I get an email from somebody around the country who's read it and who it's affected. And I'm finding that the people who are picking it up, it means a lot to them. And so I think, you know, I think it'll continue to spread through word of mouth. You know, that's the most important thing to me, is that the people who do like it, the people who like it tend to really love it.
So what are you doing now other than being an author?
I'm currently just enjoying being an author, and we're going to see sort of how long I'm able to make that last. But I'm working on writing something else, and keeping myself busy. That way, I also play music, so I'm looking forward to the world opening back up and getting back slinging my guitar around.
You and the rest of us, Michael. You and the rest of us. So I hope we helped you sell some books. I'm going to find it very interesting, having been in the patch. I didn't do what you did, but I'm sure there are a lot during it. So appreciate you coming down the road with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to visit with former United States Senator and my much older sister, Heidi Heitkamp, when we come back here down the road.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your number one choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Arrow Service Team does it all.
Pub 21, your one stop for fun, drinks, and food. Our spacious facility provides COVID-safe fun for you and all your friends. With nightly bingo and specials, you can be sure there's something to do for everyone. If you're staying in for the night, we've got you covered just across the way with Pub 21 Liquor. We have a wide variety of options, from wine to whiskey and everything in between. Stop in today at 1014 South 12th Street in Bismarck to see what all the buzz is about. You won't be disappointed.
Well, she's got a lot of names, not the least of which is former United States Senator Heidi Heitkamp. She's my much older sister. She gets so sick of me saying that. So let's bring her in. Heidi, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Number one, Joel, just knock it off. I am not that much older than you. And anybody who looks at us, the people nationally, when they meet you, they go, is he older than you are? I go, yeah.
That's just because you haven't grown a goatee with
I don't have gray in my face. That's why.
Exactly. There's something to that. So
there's a way to fix that, Joel.
Yeah, I know. It's called shaving. So, and I'm not a dyer. Can I just say that? I'm just not going to put the dye to it. I wanted to talk to you. One of the reasons that we called you was because you really understand and always have understood budgets in financing. That was your background, and that's something that you were very passionate about. Back in your tax commissioner days, you were teaching a lot of us in the family how things like this broke out and how it affected people. I want to talk to you about this stimulus bill. I want to talk to you about what just got passed in the United States Senate and get your take on it. When you think of the final form, the final version, what do you think of?
I think it will be the single largest anti-poverty bill ever passed since the New Deal. I mean, I think honestly, we talk about a K-shaped recovery, which means that the bottom half have recovered and the lower half have not. This is definitely weighted towards helping that lower half recover from COVID-19 and recover from the recession that came about as a result of the pandemic. So it's targeted in the right direction. It gets relief to families where families need relief. And I think it will make a huge difference in terms of recovery from the pandemic.
Can you give us some examples? I know that that's been floated out there a lot. They're doing a lot of compare and contrast to what the Biden administration pushed for and got versus what the Trump administration pushed for and got in 2017. So can you compare the two? Can you give us some idea of really what you're talking about?
I think the best way to describe the difference is the first stimulus plan was really top down. You know, we're going to give it to these people and hope they share it, hope that this stimulates the economy. They gave it to people who actually saw their wealth increase during the pandemic, and we didn't target it enough relief for the bottom quartile. And now we're seeing the bottom quartile. So it's the difference between investing at the top and hoping it trickles down and investing directly where the hurt is, which is to American families who have either lost their job or lost part of their wages. You know, you could have one wage earner who has a job and one wage earner who doesn't. What are their challenges? Making rent, feeding their family, getting enough money to basically pay for health insurance. All of those issues are addressed in this relief package. But beyond that, when you look at, there's the relief part, which is, you know, the moratorium on rents, the health insurance piece, the unemployment piece, and then there's the stimulus part, and that's the $1,400 payment, which will help the unemployed, but also is targeted towards people who will spend that money and not necessarily save it. And that's going to stimulate economic growth in the economy. And so it's good news for those people who got $600 checks at the end of last year, which the Republicans didn't complain about then. They're going to get an extra $1,400, which ironically, President Trump advocated for. So when you think this is just Democrat against Republican, remember, this is exactly what President Trump wanted to have happen at the end of this year.
Yes, but the fact is, you know, the version that's there now was passed without one Republican vote. Not one.
Oh, yeah. They now have gone back to the religion of debt and deficit. They saw millions of dollars, billions of dollars shoveled out the door on a tax relief plan that didn't grow the economy, on some help for farmers, which you and I both agree on. But in terms of percentage of population, a low percentage of population getting a huge government subsidy. And they said yes to all of that, but they said no to this. Shame on them. I think, when you look at how many millionaires sit in the United States Senate, and they're telling the average middle-class Joe who's working every day, you don't need this. This isn't about you. That shame on them. I think that it's a huge political mistake for a lot of these Republicans.
Well, yes and no. I mean, and farmers are the best example that I can give there, Heidi, where I could make a debate against you because, in the first relief package, massive numbers going out to farmers, massive grants, basically grants. The PPP loans are never going to be paid back. Big time money going out to farmers, and they're not going to have to pay it back. And they get a bunch more this time. And so are we in our home state being hypocrites, Heidi?
Okay, we're hypocrites every day, Joel, as we talk about, New York and California, those horrible places that actually have the highest percentage of taxpayers who subsidize the federal government. But we hate those states, and those states are takers. Well, let me tell you, anyone who understands anything about the budget knows that those states are givers. And the biggest reward doesn't go to states like North Dakota, because we've been big contributors since the oil boom. They go to southern states where you see the hardest red kind of attitudes in terms of helping people out. And so it's really interesting to see people kind of change their stripes so quickly and think people are going to forget in terms of going back to debt and deficit discussions. I can't wait for Ted Cruz to talk about how Texas needs help from recovering from what happened, which was functionally self-imposed, this natural disaster, but yet he wants to deny it to people on the East Coast. He wants to deny it where he doesn't like the people who live in those states.
Well, our North Dakota delegation, though, John Hoeven and Kevin Kramer, who serve us in the United States Senate, they've been rock solid against this bill. They have come out against this bill, and you say you'd wait to see what Ted Cruz, and you're looking forward to seeing how he reacts. I'm sorry, but I'm predicting 2 United States senators from North Dakota taking credit for a lot of things that they voted against. They're going to start bragging about money that went out to farmers here.
It's so interesting. You and I did a lot of talking after the Great Recession in 2008, 9, and 10, when the stimulus was out there and everybody voted against it, all those Republicans. But they sure were there to cut a ribbon in front of a project that was only possible because of those stimulus dollars. We're going to see the same thing. We're going to see a lot of tweets and a lot of email, Facebook messages going out saying this is how you can get your relief money. I want everybody to understand they had nothing to do with providing those dollars.
And that's the point. And that's why it was shocking to me that some of those votes didn't come across the aisle, especially after certain things were taken out. And the one obvious one I got to ask you about was minimum wage. Minimum wage came out of this bill. Should it have come out of this bill?
Yeah, it should have come out of this bill. It wasn't consistent with the Senate rules, what we call the Byrd rule, which is it has to be germane to the federal budget. I'm not a big believer that you get at the 50-yard line, and when you don't like what's going on, you want to change the rules. You want to change the holding rules, or you want to change, the lateral pass rules. It doesn't work that way. Everybody should understand that the rules should be changed. If you're going to change them prospectively, but don't change the rules in the middle of the game, and that's really what that would have been.
So when we come back, we're going to get a chance to show some graphs. Heidi brought some with her that'll break down examples of exactly what she's talking about. So until then, keep sticking around as we head on down the road.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's best contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
Beck Communications is hiring. Beck Communications is seeking qualified candidates for plant technicians in our Wheatland, North Dakota location. Beck Communications is an equal opportunity employer. To view the job details, visit www.beck.coop. To apply, email your cover letter and resume to careers@bechtel.coop. Beck Communications, making connections that matter.
Ever been in a cave before?
It's our first time.
All right.
Where are you going?
I'll see you at the car! How will we? The car! Your offer has been accepted. Ever bought a house before?
It's our first time.
All right.
Where are you going?
I'll see you at the closing. But how will we? The closing!
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Welcome back to Down the Road. Heidi Heitkamp was our guest when we left, and she's our guest now when we come back. I know, Heidi, you put some charts together, and you have access to some that you want to share with folks that explain this stimulus bill.
Well, I think it's really important to look at what the Republicans voted for, that, quite frankly, I didn't vote for, right? Which was the tax cut bill, and what they refused to vote for. And so if you look at this first chart, you can see the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. That was the big tax law change that was passed in 17 that everybody made such a big ballyhoo about and how it was going to grow the economy. It did not grow the economy, but it cost us $1.9 trillion. So this is what you got for your $1.9 trillion, with about 30% going to businesses. People making less than $75,000 got only 16%, and people making more than $75,000 got 54%. And if we broke that down even more, people like Joel and me, who do pretty well in life, we got a bigger percentage of that tax cut. Now compare it on the other side, on the right-hand side, to the American Rescue Plan, which is the one that we just voted on. And look at the aid to individuals, 44%. You take a look at state and local government that needs that help in order to provide basic services like law enforcement. They're struggling with state revenues. And then you get the pandemic and other policy. That's to get those vaccines out the door. Schools getting money. Really, really critical investments in the infrastructure, investments in recovery, especially the stuff with schools, state and local governments, and taking a look at pandemic relief in getting those vaccines out. And so it's a pretty stark comparison, I think. The next chart is actually does some side-by-sides that tell you exactly who was advantaged and who was disadvantaged. The American Recovery Act, a rescue plan, take a look at that. The top 20% under the tax law change got 65% of the benefit of that. And you take a look at the blue bar, and you can see exactly who this was targeted to. And so when people say it wasn't targeted, it doesn't go to the needy, you know, there wasn't a lot of people complaining about the tax cut law saying it didn't go to the needy. There was a lot of people bragging about that and taking victory laps. Then if you go to poverty, and I want to say this, low wage jobs, you think, oh, well, you know, that's people need to get training or they need to do better. A lot of those jobs need doing. That includes your CNA and nursing homes across the country. You know, there isn't a machine that's going to replace those great American workers. But yet when we don't pay them, guess they qualify for? They qualify for food stamps. They qualify for health care. They qualify for housing assistance. And so low wages are subsidized by taxpayers, because that means that we can, in fact, help these people get over the hump, live at least some quality of life, but yet we are paying for it, not the employers. So if you look at this provision, poverty on track for a record decline. And you can say, oh, well, we're just giving money to poor people. Guess what happens when you give money to poor people? They do better, and they reduce their intake of other government services. And finally, Joel, you asked about minimum wage. Minimum wage has not kept up with inflation. You know, I love it when people say, well, I worked a minimum wage job in the 1970s. Well, I did. And guess what? Look at it, was the equivalent of $12 an hour when I worked a minimum wage job in the 70s. Now an equivalent of less than, you know, $7.25 when you look at adjusted for inflation. Now, the other thing I want to say about minimum wage that I think is so critical, yes, states can do what they need to do, but when we don't adjust the minimum wage nationally, it means that some of us are subsidizing those low wage jobs in other states. And I hate it that we talk about a $15 minimum wage. You know why I hate it? Because it is less than $35,000 a year for a full-time worker. You tell me where in the country you can actually have a quality of life working full-time for $35,000 a year. Nowhere. And so it's important that we get a little reality in all of this, and that we understand that this is pretty complicated stuff, but important for American workers. And we didn't do the minimum wage, but I think that debate is yet to happen in the United States Senate.
Well, and you say that, and where minimum wage is at right now, and there are over 30 million Americans with families that are at minimum wage. Where they're at right now is at $15,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so it's, and then we wonder, you made an absolutely great point, Heidi, when you said that that these businesses that pay that are in fact subsidized. I mean, we sit there and we talk about, you know, mothers on SNAP with their children, and we talk a lot about, you know, Medicaid and those type of things. You and I are paying that. Everybody's paying that. And so you're spot on right about the fact that these businesses who complain, you know, are actually being subsidized, number one, by taxpayers. Number two, you know, it's about, like you said, quality life. But, you know, I would add this, you know, for those companies who say, look, if you do that, I'm going to have to let these people go. My question of them always is, well, what do you have them there for in the first place? I mean, you don't need them. Then what'd you hire them for in the first place?
You know, Joel, the cities that have actually gone to a $15 minimum wage have not seen jobs reduced. And the reason why I think that is happening is anybody who could automate a job already has automated that minimum wage job. And so you need a person being a CNA in a nursing home. And oh, by the way, I know I keep mentioning it. It's because it's a job that probably everybody listening appreciates someone doing, but very few people are willing to do it. It's some of the hardest work that's done in America, and it's the least appreciated. And so, you know, to me, those CNAs, those janitors, those people who are, you know, cleaned up after the riot in the Capitol, what do you got against them? They're working hard every day. They should at least get, you know, a little bit over $30,000 a year for their 40 hours a week.
So when you look at this, wasn't this proposal that was being talked about, which you and I both know is going to come at us another day? I mean, we're going to have a debate over minimum wage, as we should. Wasn't that phased in over a 5-year period? It wasn't over $15. It wasn't $15 the first year, was it?
No, it wasn't. And it was, you have to look at tip wages and all of the exceptions that you have. And, the question is that you need to ask yourself, should there be a national policy that sets a minimum wage? Because so many people argue, let the states do it there. They have unique economies, blah, blah, blah. I just asked a simple question. Where in this country can you live a quality of life for less than $34,000 a year when you work full time? And that's nowhere. And so if we're going to have a national minimum wage, it should reflect what that minimum wage, what that standard of living requires. And we're not doing that. And so as a result, we do earned income tax credits. And there's tons of subsidies that these low wage businesses have. And a lot of this low wage stuff is in rural communities where the jobs aren't as plentiful. And you might say, well, it costs less to live there. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It costs a lot of money to live in rural America where you have to drive to get your groceries. It costs a lot of money to heat your house in rural America. And nobody in rural America can say that they're making it on less than $33,000 a year. And I know I keep moving the number, but it is about less than $33,000 a year if you're looking at a $15 minimum wage. So let's calibrate. Let's not talk $15. Let's talk about what that is in an annual wage.
Well, we sat down on my radio show and we broke it down because, I have individuals making more than $30,000 a year, I might add, because I make sure of that, considerably more. But we sat down with the expenses of a young 25-year-old that I could look at as a perfect example. Everything from her car payment to her rent to her utilities payment to her groceries to some level of a clothing allowance. We couldn't keep it to $30,000. Even if we started checking off this item or that item, or maybe you're budgeting too much for this item, we budgeted very conservative. We couldn't get it to $30,000, Heidi.
Joel, the North Dakota Extension Office out of NDSU does a study. It's called, what does it take to make it in Fargo, North Dakota, if you're a single mom with 2 kids? You know what the calculation is? It's $25 an hour. Take a look at that budget and then tell me that there's waste. And so, when you're looking at daycare and having to pay your health care and having to pay your transportation costs and clothing, a minimal amount of clothing and a minimal amount for groceries, you know why these people qualify for some public assistance. And so let's quit saying we're subsidizing these people through SNAP and housing and health care. Let's tell the truth. We're subsidizing their employers. And people say, oh, they're just sitting on their rump. Very few people in this country anymore sit on their rump. They are out there working, but they're not getting paid enough to make ends meet.
I would tell you that the top end of many of the individuals that were given tax breaks sit on their rump a whole lot than these workers. I will tell you that.
Yeah, they can afford that house in Arizona and they can afford the cabin in Minnesota. They've got a lot more leisure time than a minimum wage mom trying to keep 2 kids because her deadbeat husband won't pay his child support, which happens all the time. What's she supposed to do? When people want to cut her food stamps, I just say, shame on you. That's the most unchristian thing I've heard.
So, and you keep talking about moving the number, which is incredibly fair of you. If you take 2,080 hours, which that's 40 hours a week, without overtime, you're looking at $31,200. So it's significant. This minimum wage increase is definitely needed. And I know a lot of people, aside from, we've been talking about how they can take advantage of that. I know a lot of individuals who just simply look at their employee and think they're lucky to have a job. And to me, that's the worst of it, Heidi. If you're treating a worker making $7.25 an hour as though they're just lucky to have a job, then you're not a good employer in the first place, Heidi. You're not.
And business will say, well, I can't afford anything more. And I'm saying, then you need to take a look at your business model. Then you need to figure out why it is that you need labor at a substandard wage in order to make a living. And they can say, well, we're creating jobs, but are they so that's a great value for our country. Jobs creators are a great value for our country. But when the only thing that they do is create minimum wage jobs, then that's not a value. I'm going to tell you a story, Joel, about a guy who came to my office. I won't tell you what he did, but he owned a lot of franchise restaurants in North Dakota. And I asked him, what we could do to help. And in the Senate office, he said, well, my biggest problem is the government. And I said, well, what about the government? So we went around and around. And I said, let me ask you, how much do you pay your employees? And he said, $10 an hour. I said, you realize that that's just a little over $20,000 a year. And he said, well, that's not what I'm talking about. And I want to say, well, yeah, that is what we're talking about. You're basically worried about passing the wealth on to your kids, millions of dollars of wealth onto your kids, and you're saying that people in your restaurants are not going to make over $10 an hour. Where is your priority? Yeah. And that's not true. I mean, I can show you other franchise restaurant owners that I've met who treat their employees like they're their kids. Yep. And so it's a difference in values. It's not a difference in whether you can make money. And oh, by the way, the ones that actually pay their employees and treat them like their children, they're still making plenty good money.
Yeah. Ask Costco compared to many other stores. Heidi, always good to have you coming down the road with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel. Keep at it.
When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, where is that cutoff? Where would it take to be in terms of percentages, ages, vaccinated before you think the country should be turned loose? We'll talk about it when we come back down the road.
Howdy folks, it's the Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-bussin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
When you can't find answers to your recurring health challenges, it can feel like your health and your future are being held hostage. The Wellness Way is a network of health restoration clinics that think and act differently to solve the health challenges others can't. Here, we disrupt the standard approach to care through a combination of testing, individual plans, and one-on-one guidance, putting your health and your future where they belong, in your own hands.
Good to have you still in the rig as we continue to head on down the road. I want to throw a question out to you, a question that many of you are obviously thinking about, but I don't know if you're getting asked a lot about your opinion on. What is the cutoff of where you think this country should be turned loose? If you're one of those that have taken COVID serious. I'm not talking about the folks that have denied COVID, the I'll never wear a mask crowd, like the ones we see in the legislature, or wear a Crown Royal bag over their face to present to all of our kids that this has been nothing but a joke. I'm not talking about them. Those aren't the individuals I'm talking about. I'm talking about you, the individuals that have seen this as a pandemic and that have done everything you can to stop the spread. North Dakota at one point was the leader in people hospitalized and diagnosed with COVID. And then remember, Governor Burgum put a mask mandate on. And that mask mandate helped. The numbers started dropping. Our hospitals caught up. We weren't shipping people out of the state anymore. We weren't flying them from Minot in a hurry down to Fargo to be told that there's no bed space in Fargo. That was going on. That was going on. So let's not be a COVID denier, okay? This question is about those of you that saw COVID as a threat to your family and to yourself. And speaking as someone who's had COVID, I can tell you, it's not the flu. It is not the flu. I still at times, if I start laughing really hard, I've got something in here and I'm going to have my lungs x-rayed to see how much damage was done to my lungs. Now, there's others I know that have had it and they don't experience or haven't experienced as much trouble as what I did. But, you know, many of us have. So what is the cutoff now? Now that so many people are being vaccinated, you can't say, well, there's Heitkamp saying we should open up the economy now when he was saying back in November, we gotta watch it. We gotta play it tight. Because the difference between November and right now in March is the fact that there's been a lot of shots in the arms, right? I mean, we've got people getting shots in the arms now in their 50s. And I know people that are in their 40s and some in their 30s with pre-existing conditions that have been vaccinated as well. But let's just assume that within the next couple of weeks, by the start of April, for example, that's an assumption, but I don't think I'm that far off by saying this. Let's just assume that everybody 50 years old and up has been vaccinated. Let's just assume that. Do you think that then the nation should be turned loose? Do you think then that the people that are at the highest risk, if you're at that risk, that you then can see yourself going out? I had a person call into my show today, and he said he's a grandparent, and he said he and his wife have been locked up during this whole thing. One of them had a pre-existing condition. He didn't share who it was, but he said they've been locked up and busting at the seams, and they both got their vaccine as soon as it was offered. And because they got that vaccine as soon as what it was offered, they waited that period that they were told to wait afterwards. But he said for the first time in a long time, in over a year, we were able to hug our grandkids. He didn't say over a year. It was like 10 months or something like that. But he said we were able to hug our grandkids and just go see them. Now, think about that. Think about that. He felt freed up enough to get out of that house, not worry about he or his wife's health, and be out in society. When is that for everyone? When is that to the point where it's not on the front page of every paper, it's not the lead in every newscast? When is that? I don't know. I don't know. I can tell you this. If you look at the people in their 30s, their at-risk is way down from the people 40 and older. And if you look at the people in the 40s, it's way down compared to the people 50 and older. So we're getting to that point where even if we're not at herd immunity, we've got a virus that we've contained somewhat with the people that are the most vulnerable to it. And we've added to that by prioritizing, healthcare workers, by prioritizing, first responders, by prioritizing teachers. and getting them back in the classroom. So what is the cutoff? I mean, what is the age that you take a look at and you say, all right, at this point, Joel, we should be able to turn the country loose, take off the masks, do whatever we can there to make it happen? I don't know what that is. I can tell you this. It's not necessarily going to be what the CDC tells me. And I know that I've been a supporter of the CDC, but some of the things that I've heard out of them, whereas if kids, for example, that are in school aren't vaccinated yet, we still need to wear our masks, we still need to do all those things. I don't bite on that. I don't. I don't nod my head and say, okay, I understand it. I get it. The most vulnerable among us are young, not vulnerable among us. The individuals that really you can take a look at and say they're not at risk as bad are the individuals that are going to be last to be vaccinated, which raises the question, again, when can we be turned loose? You're thinking about it, and so am I. Some closing thoughts when we come back right here as we head down the road.
There's nothing more important than family. And at Prairie Rose Family Dentists, we get it. That's why we have more locations, more dentists, specialists, extended hours, pediatric clinics, and even emergency appointments, so you can always be seen. Book your appointment today at prairierosedentist.com. Prairie Rose Family Dentists. We are family.
Deciding how to promote your business can be hard. Visit the professionals at Dakota Promotions and Printing and let them help you through your struggle. Dakota Promotions provides promotional items and apparel, from corporate gifts to team shirts and everything in between. With quick turnaround times and friendly service, they are your best choice. And best yet, you're shopping local. Visit them online at dakotapromo.com or stop in their showroom at 320 West Main in Mandan. Dakota Promotions, delivering promotions just for you.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Just a couple of closing thoughts as we finish our trip down the road. The stimulus bill that we went over with Heidi earlier did pass. Let's not be hypocrites about it, okay? There's a lot of help that's coming to our state. I live amongst, and some of my best friends are farmers. I want them to succeed. I want as much money going on in my economy as I possibly can. And so this is not a complaint about farmers. This is a complaint about farmers who complain. If you're a farmer that's sitting out there saying minimum wage shouldn't be $15 an hour, if you're a farmer who talks about individuals that are on Medicaid or SNAP and you're not supporting those individuals, then it's a complaint. Then it's a complaint, because I don't think that you have any standing whatsoever when you're talking about individuals that absolutely have to have help by the government and from the government to basically live, to basically be able to have that family, to basically do what we, in my particular case, what we as Christians talk about every day, about raising that family, about having that family, and about being a family. And so if you're a farmer, don't be a hypocrite. Don't sit there and say that you dislike government while at the same time you take the check from the government. And the same would go for John Hoeven and Kevin Kramer. They didn't vote for it. But I'll guarantee you this, they're going to take credit for it. They're going to run around and they're going to look at farmers and they're going to say, see what I delivered for you? Well, in the end, you voted against it. In the end, you weren't there to be there for it. And so don't do it. I think you owe it to all of us as you get that check to make sure that you at the very least can admit that it was a good investment to make as a nation in a food policy, a good investment to make for those men and women that we want living in the heartland, but it's also an investment. And when I say investment, it's money that you don't have to pay back, and you know it. I also want to talk to you about the weather. We all know what's going on out there. We all know how nice it's been. You know, we're going to get a little snow here and there yet. We're going to get that. But I'll tell you what, it's spring. I spent most of the weekend outside working on things in the yard and going to have some fun and spending a little time looking for a muskrat or two, just so I could share some love with them. But I will tell you this, I like it. I like it. There's nothing better than a spring here in the Upper Plains. It's absolutely fabulous. So I hope you get out and take part in that as well. It's always good riding with you. You be careful, and we'll keep heading down the road.
Dakota Community Bank and Trust is a proud supporter of Bismarck Cancer Center, and we couldn't be more honored to further assist them in expanding local state-of-the-art treatment for our citizens. With the capital campaign currently in progress, not only will their expansion include new square footage from this to this, but also additional medical equipment for radiation treatment and caring support to better serve their patients. We invite you to contact Bismarck Cancer Center for donations and naming opportunities towards their expansion.
Respect, innovation, trust, and excellence. These core values can be seen in every building built by Straightway Construction. In the community for over 15 years, Straightway Construction has become the premier construction company for commercial projects. From dirt to design and framing to finish, Straightway Construction is your #1 choice. You won't have to look far to find a project that has that Straightway touch. Call them today or go online to straightwayconstruction.com and let them make your vision a reality.
When you can't find answers to your recurring health challenges, it can feel like your health and your future are being held hostage. The Wellness Way is a network of health restoration clinics that think and act differently to solve the health challenges others can't. Here, we disrupt the standard approach to care through a combination of testing, individual plans, and one-on-one guidance, putting your health and your future where they belong, in your own hands.
The experienced professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
shout out to North Dakota and Beck News, where you can watch the Dr. Duke Show each weekday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time.
North Dakota is one of the last bastions of sanity in our republic. The legislature consistently passes pro-life and family legislation. This session, North Dakota legislature is trying to thwart efforts to allow boys to say they are girls and play on girls' sports teams. Go North Dakota.
And thanks for carrying the Dr. Duke Show on Beck TV.